The chorus kicks you in the nuts. Well, I've been known to like the occasional kick in the nuts.
The Motley Crue was the band that got me into hard rock and metal, but Skid Row was the band that made me, I mean, feel at home.
Fucking 18 in Life. I worshipped that song.
It's dirty, it's filthy, it's a beautiful thing.
The fucking opening riff. Geez, you got to take a shower after listening to that thing. Yep.
Against Sebastian Bach, they can't handle him. I don't know many people that could.
My whole fucking list is not ballads, I promise.
I had just a skosh of an attitude problem back then.
Holy fuck. This is not fucking 1989 Skid Row.
Honestly, I think the production on it was shit.
It's just impossible to stop your head from fucking banging.
The hair metal guru from Warren to Crew. The hair metal guru. Never forget Charlie too.
Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the fucking guru. And with me is my buddy Jay from Iowa, because today we need to talk about a band that I haven't talked about on the channel for a long time, but I think needs more discussion. And we're talking about Skid Row. And I've said it before, I'll probably say it again, that when I was 16, 17 years old, there's not a band I identified with more than Sebastian Bach and Skid Row. And to talk about our 10 favorite songs, Jay, who is also a huge Skid Row fan, has agreed to come on and do this list. With that, Jay, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Guru. And as you see right behind me, classic Skid Row poster. Motley Crue was the band that got me into hard rock and metal, but Skid Row was the band that made me, I mean, feel at home.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I mean, I loved I loved Bon Jovi, I loved Def Leppard, but when I got the Skid Row debut, that thing just grabbed me by the freaking boo-boo. So,
Absolutely.
before we get into it, I got a couple things I want to show. First, this was a 2-page ad out of like a hit parader for the Slave to the Grind album. And I'll try to remember to put it in the description, but I did do a Skid Row album ranking towards the beginning of the channel. And I actually did say that this was my favorite Skid Row album. And this, actually, I think I got from a Canadian magazine called Meat. But it's for Slave to the Grind, but it was when they were going on tour with Pantera. And my first Skid Row show was at the Fargo Civic Auditorium in 1991 with Pantera opening, and I had no clue who Pantera was. And I'll be honest, that's a little bit heavier than I was into. So, I mean, they were good live, but I've said I thought it was a mistake for them. I thought they should have gone out with a band that was a little, maybe a heavy band, but that was a real drastic change for girls who were going to see Skid Row.
Oh, I can imagine.
Right?
Oh, Sebastian. And then here's Phil Anselmo.
Right, exactly. Here is I don't know why they did a brown, but this isn't for Slave to the Grind. It was kind of a brown ad, but then this came from a Kerrang out of Great Britain for the single for 18 in Life. Also from Kerrang for the Breaking Down single from Subhuman Race, which was actually, I'm not a fan of Subhuman Race, but I really like that song. And you got one more for the Subhuman Race album. And then for the 1989 debut, it says rock and roll got just a little bit dirtier, and it was when they were going on tour with Bon Jovi on the New Jersey tour. So there's 5 or 6 things from Skid Row, and give me a second while I set this shit down. Hey, Jay is in a band. What's the name of your band again? God, I was freaking
Stone Park Ritual.
Stone Park Ritual. They have some shit on YouTube, right?
YouTube and Reverb Nation.
And Reverb Nation. Please follow me on X at Hair Metal Guru. I also have a couple Facebook channels, Hair Metal Guru and Classic Rock Fargo. Plus, you have the opportunity to become a member. Costs a couple bucks a month, but you get some benefits. You get early access to videos. You get first response to comments. Hey, whatever you can, whether it's that, whether it's just watching, liking, or subscribing, I appreciate anything you can do to support what it is that we do here. So, with that, Jay, it was fucking difficult for me to narrow this down to 10, even though Skid Row doesn't have, or at least with Sebastian, a ton of albums. They have a ton of great fucking songs.
Absolutely. I mean, the first two albums, if there's not a bad song on them,
Right.
Subhuman Race is a matter of taste. I like it. Honestly, I think the production on it was shit, and which is a surprise considering Bob Rock did it. And I mean, you listen to Dr. Feelgood, you listen to Metallica, and you listen to Subhuman Race.
Right. Agreed.
Some didn't add up. Then, you know, I was a big fan of the era with Johnny Solinger.
Yes.
Did they ever release anything with ZP?
No.
I know I saw him live with him, but didn't think there was anything that they had
The
released.
only other recorded output was the new album with Eric Gronwall, The Gang's All Here, which I will say right now, my list does not represent that. I have listened to it a couple times. Yeah, I like it. It hasn't grabbed me like the earlier stuff. So my list tends to focus on Sebastian, and there is some stuff from Johnny Solinger's era. So with that, we had to narrow it down to 10. Let's get into it. Jay, what is your number 10 from Skid Row?
Oh, my number 10 is from your favorite album. My number 10 is Mud Kicker. And that riff, I mean, Jesus Christ. It's dirty, it's filthy, it's a beautiful thing. I love that song.
Not on my list. That is one of the heaviest Skid Row songs. That fucking opening riff. Geez, you got to take a shower after listening to that thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love that entire album. There's a couple songs that I'm kind of, but Mud Kicker is phenomenal. Made my honorable mentions. So awesome choice to start us off. My number 10 is probably going to be a little bit of a surprise because everyone knows I love pussy ballads. Ain't that right, Brian, from the Hairband Basement? But I'm going to start us off with a ballad, and it is I Remember You. And I think people would expect that to be higher on my list. And when this album came out, I mean, I loved that song. Now, as I get older, I still love it, but it's fallen a little bit, you know, your tastes change. When you look at those lyrics, it is pretty 1980s. You know, woke up to the sound. You know, it's your basic lovey-dovey ballad. I will say one of my favorite guitar solos is the Scotty Hill guitar solo in that song is phenomenal. But massive hit. You know, I think it made it to number 6 on the Billboard Top 10. And you know, I think when you think of Skid Row, there's a few songs you probably think of, and I Remember You, I think, is one of them. Comes in at number 10.
Yeah, it's a great song. I agree with you on the guitar solo. Scotty and Snake both are criminally underrated guitar players.
Agreed.
Uh,
Agreed.
And very melodic. There's nothing they really can't pull off from I Remember You to, you know, Slave to the Grind, the song. I mean, it's just they can cover about anything with, I mean, with taste. It's great players.
Yep. Okay. Moving on. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is off the same album, Riot Act.
Oh, sure.
It's got that punk influence that Rachel is really well known for. I remember when I heard the song, you know, when the album came out, it was almost like my anthem, if you will. I had just a skosh of an attitude problem back then. So I felt the song really spoke for me. Short, sweet, and just beautiful. Great song.
I love that song, and most people who follow the channel know that I'm a big punk fan, and so that song is right up my fucking alley. And yeah, that opening guitar riff, it's just impossible to stop your head from fucking banging like a insane person. So I'm right with you on that.
Agreed.
My number nine, okay, maybe from left field, maybe not. The 2003 album with Solinger called Thick Skin. Obviously, in 2003, it was going to be difficult for a band that got, and Skid Row is kind of iffy to put into the hair metal category. A lot of people think that they don't belong in. I I tend to use the term hair metal very broadly. So even, I'll talk about AC/DC on the channel, even though they're totally not hair metal. Anyway, if you were even associated with the 80s or hair metal by 2003, it was going to be a struggle to be a success. But they put out this album, Thick Skin, and I think it was criminally underrated. It was more modern, but it still didn't lose the melody and the catchiness that they had on their earlier shit. And when I did the album ranking, I ranked it number 3 after Slave and after the debut. But there are songs that I put up with the best. Obviously, this makes my top 10. It's Born a Beggar. And this thing is it's
Beautiful choice.
a hard fucking rock song. The lyrics are great. I love Solinger's voice. It's got some grit to it. It's got some power to it. And man, I just that then the shit, there was great ballads on it. I'm gonna have another song from this album later on my list, but Born a Beggar, love it, comes in at number 9.
Yeah, that actually would have been a song that was created during their brief hiatus when they did Ozone Monday. Then a singer named Sean McCabe. He's got a writing credit on that song.
Really?
It was a carryover from then, but that makes me wonder what the rest of that project sounded like.
Right.
It's a great song.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. Great album. But okay. You're number 8. We're moving on. What do you got?
It's off the debut album. Should it be higher? Maybe, but Youth Gone Wild. I absolutely love the song. My band covered the song.
Right.
Granted, try to do Justice Snake and Scotty is difficult, but it's an anthem. Spoke to every person in our general age group at that point, still does, judging by the reaction of crowds. Just balls to the wall, hair metal at its finest.
Yeah. And yes, it's on my list, so I won't talk about it too much. But hearing that song, and when you're young, you never feel like people understand you. You always feel, and when you get older, you're kind of like, okay, I wasn't really that much of an outcast. But at that time, you said it, that song just spoke to people, and you felt like, hey,
Absolutely.
I'm not the only person.
It made you feel like you weren't out there by yourself.
Exactly. Okay, great call. My number 8, okay, my whole fucking list is not ballads, I promise. Here's another ballad.
And Brian would be proud of you for this.
Yeah, making fun of me, more like it. But off the Slave to the Grind album, the last track is a song called Wasted Time. It was, and I've talked about this before. Yes, that album went double platinum, but none of the songs were big hits. This is the only song that made it into the Billboard Top 100. It made it to number 88. It deserved to be top 10. It's about, and I think it was written about Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses and about his struggle with heroin. But you hear in the lyrics when it talks about the horse stampedes, it rages. Well, another term for heroin, some people call it horse. I don't know why, but anyway, because I've never done heroin. But amazing lyrics. Sebastian hits some of his highest notes. It fucking grabs me right here. and should have been a massive hit. Wasted Time comes in at number 8.
Great call on that one. And the video for it is almost disturbing.
Yes.
I mean, back then, especially.
Yes.
I mean, it was definitely a take on a dark place.
Yep.
And I mean, that's one thing Skid Row did very well, especially once they got away from the debut, is their lyrics and everything. I mean, it took a twist. Snake and Rachel are lyrical geniuses.
Completely agree. And you know, like you weren't even on the debut, you weren't getting, oh yeah, we're gonna go out and party and fuck chicks. I mean, you know, you had your Youth Gone Wild, your stand up to authority, but they were always, I mean, a lot of their lyrics, especially on Slave to the Grind, were getting into deeper and darker subjects, you know, before a lot of bands were doing that. You know, that was before the grunge shit
Well,
was starting.
that's one reason why back then and still to this day, I have an incredible respect for Skid Row. They didn't take the cheesy, easy way out
Right.
that a lot of bands did. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, Guns N' Roses came before them and they had that edge.
Yeah.
And I think that probably helped Skid Row a little bit.
Yes.
But there ain't a whole lot of bands from around that time that had that, I mean, that rough tumble look, sound, and everything, the whole package.
And every band back then, they always said, "Oh, our next album is going to be so much heavier." Skid Row was one of the bands who actually did it and then some, because Slave was dramatically heavier than we were thinking it was going to be.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. Your number 7.
Gonna go a little bit closer to modern times. They did a couple of EPs, and one of them is represented here. Song Kings of Demolition.
Oh, okay.
It opens up, I believe it's volume 1 of United World Rebellion.
Yep.
I thought it was a bit of a throwback stylistically to their first album, but very catchy. I mean, it's got groove, it's got melody. Awesome tune.
I have those, and it's been a while since I listened to them. And I'll throw this out there. In my honorable mentions is a ballad off United World Rebellion. I think it's off the first one as well. And those were with Solinger. But there's a ballad called This Is Killing Me. And it hits me even a little bit harder when Johnny Solinger passed away a couple years ago. And if I understand right, it was alcohol related. I think he had been drinking heavy for many years.
I remember reading that, which is, I mean, it's a shame. It shows you what substance abuse can do to a person over time. I thought he was a phenomenal singer.
Totally.
Met him a couple times when I saw them play with him fronting the band. Hell of a nice guy.
Yeah. So This Is Killing Me was the one song that was going to make it from United World Rebellion. Great ballad. And I remember that song. You're right. It harkens back to the early days of Skid Row, and Solinger has a fantastic voice. So go check that shit out. All right. My number 7. Okay. Now I'm going to another song off Slave to the Grind. And this is the song that got them so much fucking criticism. In fact, they were banned from playing Wembley Stadium because Sebastian Bach just could not help himself from playing Get the Fuck Out. And I love that song. That opening guitar riff is punky, it's heavy, it's catchy. The lyrics are kind of disturbing in a way. You know, like here's a line, well, I puke, I stink, bitch, get me a drink because I'm paying for the room. Not that I'm advocating for treating anybody like that, but when you're 18, 19, which I was when this album came out, you're like, fuck yeah, you know, like party hard, you know, get the fuck out, like anti-authority. And anytime you could say fuck in a song was always a good thing. And I think it's catchy as shit. Get the Fuck Out's my number 7.
Great choice. Yeah, was real close to making my list because, yeah, I mean, back then, that song you could just cruise around and blare it, try to hit those crucial get the fuck out points when you were passing somewhere you didn't like. I mean,
Right.
just trying to get your message across in a subtle way.
Right.
No, that wasn't me, officer. That's Skid Row, but go fuck yourself.
That's right. That's right. All right. All right. Moving on to your number 6.
My number 6 is off the debut, Big Guns.
Ah,
It starts, pun intended, starts things off with a bang. Um, Killer guitar riff.
yes.
There's a little, during the chorus, be like, dude, it's got the main riff, dude, 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 that little walk down, and then it's reversed. That caught me the first time I heard it. I'm like, fuck, that's a nice little twist, but great song. They still play it live. I love it.
Probably one of the heavier guitar riffs on the debut album. And that was a song that grabbed me, and that's in my honorable mentions. That was a difficult one to keep off. I fucking love that song. So, my number 6, you already listed it. It's fucking Riot Act. And I'm so I love that. I love that punk like guitar, and I love, I mean, Sebastian Bach is just spitting lyrics out super fast. It's gritty, it's slimy, it's greasy. It was completely unexpected. And, you get shit like that, Mud Kicker. Holy fuck, this album was heavy. And it might have bitten them in the ass. It probably would have been a lot better for their career, or at least for the sales of that album if they went out and did, a bunch of not pop rock, but, tried to replicate the formula of the first album. But they went 10 times as heavy, and even the ballads were heavy. They went punky. And I mean, to most people, when I talk to big Skid Row fans, most of them say that Slave is their favorite album. But, the debut went 5 times platinum. This one went 2 times platinum, and it took like 8 years to get double platinum. So, who knows?
I mean, I know you've touched on it in some other videos about, like a failure, so to speak,
Yeah.
sales wise. You
Yes.
sell 5 million, you sell 2 million. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a failure. Granted, it did hit debut number 1 on Billboard, which
Yep.
is great. I agree. I think they could have taken the easy way out. They could have wrote, a duplicate of the first album. It would have probably lit shit up. But then again, it may not have done anything considering just the change in the
Right.
music scene in that short period of time.
Yep. Exactly. Now, I mean, 1991 was when the change was occurring. Nirvana came out in September. Metallica's Black Album blew up that year. So
Alice in Chains was huge.
Alice in Chains was huge. So, you know, I I felt like, man, they're right along with Metallica. They're heavy. They're getting heavier. They still have the great look, but and most people were saying, well, double platinum isn't a failure. I get it. But, again, and Brian from the Hairband Basement said it, name the hit. There wasn't a hit. There were songs that should have been hits, but none of these were big hits on the radio, which is unfortunate because that album deserved much better. All right. Fuck, that was my number 6 was Riot Act. We are on to your number 5.
We're going with the most modern title track off of their CD, The Gang Is All Here.
Okay.
Personally, I'm a bit upset that Eric Grunwald bailed on the band. I get he did it for health. He has definitely, if you're not familiar, he had serious health problems before joining Skid Row.
Yeah.
His immune system prevented them from fulfilling all their tour obligations at a few points. Some things had to be rescheduled. So I get it. Dude's got to take care of himself. Doesn't mean I'm not disappointed though, because I
Yeah.
did see Skid Row live with Buck Cherry a couple years ago, and he was fucking phenomenal. I mean, the
Yeah.
band was on fire, and that song got the same reaction live
Yeah.
that all the old stuff got. People dug it. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, fuck yes. They got, I mean, they got some swagger back.
Yeah.
And it was also has a co-write credit to Paul Taylor of Winger.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, he did a lot of good work with songwriting on Mick Mars' solo album also. So, I mean, he's got, brings a lot to the table to help the band out.
I wanted Gron. I never saw him with Gronwall. I mean, I've seen live stuff, and from what I've seen live, I mean, those early Skid Row albums are difficult for any vocalist to replicate, and he did
He
it
did
as
it
well
flawless.
as you were going to get. He's young, you know, he has energy, and I know he had, but he had health. I mean, they knew he had health problems, so it's unfortunate that he couldn't have at least made it. I mean, now look at they're going through vocalists like fucking crazy, and it's unfortunate. You know, you want them to have some
That
stability.
that's the one thing about Skid Row that I have never quite figured out. I mean, obviously, vocalist number one that nobody knows, Matt Fallon,
Not
that
Fallon.
Doc McGee had them get rid of him.
Yep.
They get Sebastian Bach. They can't handle him. I don't know many people that could. They lasted longer than I would have.
Yeah.
They break the band up. They reform the band with Johnny, and he was in for a long time. But
Yeah.
I don't think they ever really said what transpired with him, but I'm imagining it was probably alcohol related.
Probably.
Then
Probably.
they had Tony Harnell.
For
That
like
was,
for like 6 or 8 months.
yeah, that was a disaster. Then they had ZP Thart for
Couple of years.
5 years, six,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
And then Eric.
Eric. And
So yeah, I mean, I did a video on it, and I've always said that I tend to blame Sebastian. I mean, Sebastian, even it's not like I know him personally, but just watching home videos, watching video, following him online, he would be a lot to take for anybody because he's always on 100, you know. But
right,
I in the video I did, you know, looking at the way Skid Row goes through vocalists, you can't say that they're blameless too, because obviously, you know, if things were perfect with
right,
them, they'd probably be able to hold on to a singer, but they can't.
right. I mean, who knows why they go through singers like they do? Um, it would be easy to pinpoint it all on Sebastian if that wasn't the case. You're right.
Right. Yeah. So who knows? I don't know what they're gonna do now. They either, you know, it's either try to get some older guy who's established or some younger person who can handle singing those high parts and isn't going to be too demanding when it comes to money because you know money's a fucking issue no matter where you look at it, and it's not like those guys are, you know, I mean, I'm sure they're doing fine, but it's not
Right.
like
You
they're
know that they're getting good, publishing stuff.
yeah.
Or at least Snake and Rachel are.
Nick and Rachel,
Scotty probably to a point.
yeah,
You can be sure that Rob Hammersmith is a hired gun
yeah,
essentially, even though he's been
totally,
in the band for a long time.
totally,
But I get that they want a peaceful existence and they don't want it being interrupted by Sebastian Bach.
yeah,
But they need to find somebody who they can just live with and ride it out another 10 years until they
right,
decide to hang it up or whatever it is
right,
they want to do.
right. Okay, moving on. My number five, and you said it, you know, shit, it probably should be number one because the number one song that most people think of when you think of Skid Row is Youth Gone Wild. And the only reason it's at number five is probably, I mean, when I was younger, I played the shit out of this. I mean, I wore the cassette out. I wore, you know, then you get the CD. And so, yes, that whole album, but that song, like it connected with a generation. told us, like, yes, like you said, you're not alone. Fucking, go out there and take what's yours and don't let anybody tell you what to do. It was the ultimate anti-authority anthem. And so even though it comes in at number five, it's hard to say that I've identified with the song from Skid Row more than Youth Gone Wild.
Well, obviously I already had it, so
Yep.
I mean, I'm glad it ranked higher on your list.
Yep.
But yeah, great song.
Okay. All right. You're number four.
My number four is the opening track off Slave to the Grind, Monkey Business.
Ah,
I remember putting that, well, cassette tape. I mean, this was 1991, people.
right.
I remember putting the cassette on and that opening riff, nice, clean, and soft vocals. Then all of a sudden, the distortion kicks in, and Sebastian starts with that scream. And I remember thinking, what in the fuck happened to Skid Row? And I love the shit out of it.
Yes.
That's it's rapid fire in its delivery vocally. Great guitar solo, nice little breakdown in the middle, just fun, fucking phenomenal.
Okay, well, that's a good transition because my number four is also Monkey Business from Slave to the Grind. And yeah, you get that opening, like, I don't know, kind of acoustic intro, and you're like, okay, what's this? And then that fucking banshee wail from Sebastian, and then that guitar riff comes in, and you're like, holy fuck, this is not fucking 1989 Skid Row. And I still, that's probably the song that most, that I think most people identified with off Slave to the Grind, unfortunately, because it was the first single. So it did get some decent airplay right away. But man, that thing is just massive and I fucking love it. So
how it wasn't a humongous hit is, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, like Metallica's opening track was Enter Sandman. And that's a great, it was a big hit. So it's not like radio was against playing hard, heavy rock. They
Right.
were. And yeah, I'm baffled that song didn't blow up on radio. Just baffled. Fuck, it still pisses me off. All right, you're number three.
I'm going with the final entry from Sebastian Bach, into another off Subhuman Race.
No shit. Okay.
There's a handful of songs that I really appreciate off that album. Hey, production wise, like I've said, it's shit. I mean, you got Bob Rock. It should sound at least somewhat close to Dr. Feelgood or the Black Album by Metallica or the Cult or any of the real good quality recordings that he done. But it doesn't. Sounds like ass, and especially the drums, and it's muddy. But the song Into Another is a little bit slower tempo. It's moody. It's just dark. If you've ever watched a video, it portrays the same type of atmosphere. I think that's a song that could have been on Slave to the Grind.
Yep.
It's definitely that period sounding.
Yep.
Just seen them play it live and people were digging it. I mean, of course, that was clear way back then too. So,
yeah.
Just great song off of a disc that most people don't even listen to.
And yeah, and every year I pull out Subhuman Race once or twice. And yeah, like Into Another is probably, I don't love it, but it's one of the songs that you're like, okay, I can sit back and enjoy this. I don't need to skip it. And you're right, the production on it is shit. And what the fuck? Because Bob Rock was shit. The Metallica album and Dr. Feelgood are two of the best sounding albums, of that period. So what happened with Subhuman? So yeah, that's a good call. And I'm glad it got represented. I don't have anything on here like I said, Breaking Down, really good ballad. That's in my honorable mentions, but all right, good call. Okay, my number three, and I'm surprised you have maybe you won't have it. Uh, but I fucking 18 in Life. I worshipped that song. That song was so dramatically different than and I call it a ballad. Some people are like, 18 in Life isn't a ballad. Look, a ballad is usually a mellow song, and oftentimes it tells a story. Well, that's what this song does. It tells a story. Some people think that ballads have to be love songs. It's not true. So, to me, it's a ballad, but you know, dark fucking commentary about society. You know, you watch the video, it's two best friends, their home lives are shit, they walk the streets, they drink, one of them ends up shooting the other one and goes to prison. You were not getting stuff like that. Like, you were maybe getting that darker content from like the thrash bands, but bands that were
Right.
associated with hair metal, you know, you kind of had Faster Pussycat's House of Pain. That was a pretty dark lyrical song.
You
But
had You're All I Need by Motley
by
that got
Motley. Yeah,
banned from
sure.
MTV.
Yep,
I was surprised that the video for this didn't, in a way.
sure.
This, I mean, it's not
Yep.
the same, but it's not
Yep.
all that different either.
Yes. But so, and it was a fantastic song. It was a massive hit. But you know, when you look back at that debut album, they had three hits from there. Piece of Me was a single, but it wasn't a big hit. Youth Gone Wild was fairly big hit. Then two ballads. So, you know, like back then you didn't want to be known, and Skid Row wasn't a ballad band, but when you look at their success, at least from that first album, two ballads, one rock song, and then, you know, the follow-up Slave, we talked about how it didn't do as well as we thought it should. So, yeah, but 18 in Life, still love that song. So original, and comes in at number three.
Awesome pick. And more on that later on my list.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. We are on to your number two. What do you got?
My number two is off of Thick Skin, Down from Underground.
Oh,
It's near the end of the disc, but it's almost it's kind of sludgy, little heavy, but it's also during the verses, it's pretty airy, a little bit clean tones on the guitar, lofty-ish vocals. Um, Chorus kicks you right in the fucking nuts, and has another famous co-write, if you will, Damon Johnson, Brother Kane,
Brother Kane.
and yep, and other bands.
Yep.
He actually had a couple co-writes on that album, and our friend Jeremy has mentioned the song "See You Around." While Damon would have a co-write on that song as well.
See You Around is in my honorable mentions. That is a phenomenal ballad from Thick Skin. And you
Absolutely.
mentioned that the chorus kicks you in the nuts. Well, I've been known to like the occasional kick in the nuts. So I don't remember that song, but I'm going to have to check that out because I was listening to that today, but I think I kind of just passed it by. So my number two, well, holy shit, is also from Thick Skin. And it was the first single, the only song that got a video. It's called Ghost. This song is so fucking catchy. And it's, you know, when it came out in 2003, it is more modern. I mean, it's not 1989 Skid Row. You hear pieces of the old Skid Row, but it's modern sounding. But they did it in such a classy way that if this had come out by a modern band, it should have been a massive hit, but it came out from a band called Skid Row, so nobody was gonna play it. But it's my number two, and most people that know this song are like, fuck, that thing should have blown up all over radio. So Ghosts from Thick Skin, number two.
Great song, great pick. There were, you know, pound for pound, that whole record is
Yes.
pretty fucking badass.
Shit. My fucking honor, like if we do honorable mention, I have a bunch of other songs. You know, there are at least 5 songs I know that I'm like, fuck, that could have been on radio. That could have been on radio. And they actually, I mean, judging from this episode, you know I love punk. They did, some people hated it, but they did a punk remake of I Remember You called I Remember You Too. I loved it.
I
Loved it.
saw them play in Sioux City, Iowa in '02, about a month after my oldest daughter was born.
Okay.
They played that
No
live.
shit.
And it was, I remember it was them, Tesla, Jackal, and Vince Neil on a thing called River Cave they had there. But I remember when they played, I Remember You Too. Fuck. People, channeled their inner Brian. They went and grabbed a beer or went and took a piss. I mean, it got zero reaction from the
Wow.
crowd, aside from me and a few other diehards. They were like, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So both of our number twos came from Thick Skin. I'm dying to hear what your number one is. What do you got?
Your number three, 18 in Life.
Ah, okay.
I remember hearing just that opening riff and
Yep.
I mean, it instantly grabbed me. That bass line is fucking insanely good in that song. Lyrics tell a nice, dark, twisted story.
Yeah.
The video was incredible. I mean, that song is probably in my top 5 all-time favorite songs.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Um, one of my buddies that passed away about 10 years ago, uh, he actually started my band with me, and we would jam on that song, and both big Skid Row fans. So
Right.
every time I hear it to this day, I, kind of take a little stroll down memory lane, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh shit. I'm right with you. And you still like that opening dun, 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 dun. You hear that and the fucking place goes nuts no matter where you're at when that song comes on. So
Absolutely.
all right. Okay. My number one, and this might surprise people, but it's one of the heaviest songs, well, not counting Subhuman Race. It's the title track of the Slave to the Grind album. I still play that for workout playlists. That opening riff, you can't help but bang your head like holy shit. The drums and the riff are just, it's almost like, can they really play that fast? I and it is the Youth Gone Wild of the Slave to the Grind album. The I don't need your authority. Fuck, I'm gonna live my own life. I'm a slave to the grind, but holy shit. So and this got a video. It was a single. Again, it didn't make any charts, but I felt like shit. That was the kind of song that set them apart from what other bands were doing. And unfortunately, it didn't set them up for the 90s like I thought it was going to. But I still love that song, Slave to the Grind, the title track.
Oh, a little note on that, if you didn't know. On Slave to the Grind, that song, what you're hearing is actually the demo of it. They tried to re-record it when they did everything else, but they couldn't get the same tenacity out of it. So they put the
Right.
demo version on the record.
Right. I think I heard that before. And this is still the song that opens, I think, every Skid Row concert. I think Sebastian still opens with it. I mean, it is a crushing opener when you see it live. Holy shit.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, do you want to throw out any honorable mentions?
I have a couple dozen, but I'll chop it down to just a few.
There you go.
Midnight Tornado,
Okay.
Rattlesnake Shake, Sweet Little Sister. Let me see here. In a Darkened Room,
Oh, yeah.
one. The song My Enemy off Subhuman Race.
Yep.
Off of Thick Skin, I'd have the song Thick as the Skin, New Generation, See You Around, as we kind of mentioned.
Yep.
We Are the Damned off United World Rebellion Volume 2.
Okay. My honorables, Big Guns. This Is Killing Me off United World Rebellion. See You Around, amazing ballad off Thick Skin. There's another ballad on there called One Light that I also really like. Piece of Me off the debut. In a Darkened Room and Quicksand Jesus are two other great ballads, along with Wasted Time off Slave to the Grind. Then Thick as the Skin, another one off fuck off the Thick Skin album, dumbass. Jeez. So those are my honorable mentions. Jay, thanks for coming on to talk about our 10 favorite Skid Row songs, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, Guru. It is fun to finally get a chance to do a video of just two of us. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, man.
Yes, and I know you're such a massive Skid Row fan. I am too. It was great hearing and you had some surprises in there, so it's nice to see something different. I appreciate you coming on. Hey, head in the comments. Tell us what your favorite Skid Row songs are. Give us your top 10, your top 20, or whatever you want, because you are the customer, and the customer is always fucking right. Okay, at least most of the time. Anyway, hey, like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell if you want to get notifications. You have the opportunity to become a member. You get first response to comments. You get early access to videos, and it costs a couple bucks a month, so hopefully I can make it worth your while. Whatever you can do to support the channel, I just appreciate you being here. Until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.